Okay, so we're going to be setting up our digital files for our website prototype for our cookbook. And there are two files you can choose from. One is a 1024 pixel width file, which is the non-retina display size, or there's also a 2560 width pixels, and that is a retina size, enlarged screen size. So I'm opening up the larger one to start there. I'm going to zoom in so that you can see this is what it looks like. There are guidelines in it, built into it, of a 4-column grid. And you can see that's already built into the template. Both of them have this. So if you open up the layers palette, you'll see that there is a Chrome browser window. I can turn on and off. And then just a white background. Those are the two layers that is built into this template. The other window I want you to open, and you go up to Windows and open, is your Libraries window. And once you do that, it takes a moment to load, and it might start out with a black box, but go ahead and open this Libraries window, and you can see that it is open to my cookbook library, and I can see and access all of my color palettes that I made in InDesign. They're now eligible and available to me here in Photoshop. Okay, you all with me? Okay. I'm going to create a new layer in our layers palette, and I'm going to call this my column. And so you can see the columns that I've set up here. I'm going to take my marquee tool, and I'm going to select from one column, the first column, all the way down with using my guides. And I'm just scrolling down to the bottom. And I'm going to pick a color inside my, just something light so that I can see it. And I'm going to use my paint bucket to fill, using my paint bucket tool to fill it. I scroll out. You can see I've just filled one column with a color. Now I have that selected, and I'm going to Command C, Command V, and I've just copied that layer. And if I'm on a PC, it's Alt C and Alt V, cut and paste. And I'm going to do that for each of my Command C, Command V. I'm duplicating each one of my columns. I'm just hitting Command V, paste. And now I have 4 columns. Notice on the side here, I also have 4 layers. I'm going to move my column layer to the top. I'm going to select all 4 of them. And then I'm going to go in to the menu bar and say merge layers. Now they're all inside my columns layer. And I'm going to move that columns layer under the Chrome browser bar, but above the background. Are you all with me on that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is, again, using my marquee tool. Well, before I do that, sorry, we're going to go into layers and create another new layer. And this one's going to be called rows. Okay, now I'm going to use my marquee tool. Start in the upper corner of my browser bar and my first column. And I'm going to, based on a square, so I started with the idea of a square. Once I have a square that is the width of my column, I let go of my shift key and then I bring it all the way over. So I start with holding my shift key down and bringing the marquee tool down. So I align it with that first column width. Once I have a perfect square, I lift my finger off the shift key and I bring my cursor all the way. I'm holding it down and pulling it all the way across all four. And then I'm going to take that paint bucket tool and fill that. I'm then going to go up here from normal to multiply, and you'll see that I can now see the gutters between the columns. So I made one, and I'm going to do the same thing I did for the columns. I'm going to hold my shift. I'm going to say, sorry, Command C or Alt C if I'm on a PC, Command V on a Mac, Alt V on a PC, and I'm going to bring it down. Excuse me, and paste. I'm going to copy and paste, and I'm going to keep bringing that down, making perfect squares in between. And so Ying, your comment earlier was like, how many of these would we need? Just as many as will fit. And again, we're probably not going to use the whole length of this design because that was just made for the worst case scenario. And when we get to our final design, we will just crop the page accordingly. Okay, so now I've added all of my rows. I'm going to select them all. Actually, before I do that, before I select them, I'm going to move the file layer that I named rows all the way up to the top. So that's what it's called. And then I'm going to select all the layers below it and, or above the Chrome browser. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to new layer. Into the menu bar and go merge layers. And then under where it says normal, I'm going to change that to multiply. And then we'll get our checkerboard. And I'm going to move that right above the word, the columns layer. Are you all with me on that?
Yes.
Okay. So now we have our grid in place. And so this is really handy. We can turn it on and off as needed as we're designing. And this allows us to just kind of really quickly see what we're doing and layering our work on top. And you saw this was exampled in our book when we were reading about grids for website and type on screen. So once we have this grid in place, then we can start adding in our elements from our InDesign layout. So the first element I'm going to add in, or also for our project. So there's two things I'm going to add in right away that are for the HelloFresh ad specifically. One is the navigation bar that I've given you along with the assignment and the ad. So let's bring those two items right away into the layout. So I'm going to do that by going File, Place, Embedded. And I'm going to grab the HelloFresh navigation bar. And you can see there it's come in small because I'm actually using the bigger design. So I'm going to zoom in a little so I can see what I'm doing as I place this, because I want to make sure I place it and get it sized right. I need to resize it. Let me move these menus out of the way. Okay, so there's my HelloFresh. I'm going to go ahead and scale it. I don't need to hold the shift key down in Photoshop. It's automatically going to proportionately scale it for me. And I'm just going to line it up with that grid, hit return on a Mac or enter on a PC. And now you can see it is sized. I'm going to move it below the Chrome bar. Okay, and so now I have my menu bar in position. The next thing I'm going to do is bring in the HelloFresh ad. I'm going to go File, Place Embedded, and select the HelloFresh ad that I downloaded from Blackboard. And you're going to see it's going to come in. It's fairly large. So right now it's at about a 2-column size. You can either scale it up to 2-column or you can scale it down to 1 column, depending on your sketch, whatever you decided in your design. So let's say you decided it was a 1 column. Again, you don't need to hold the shift key down. In Photoshop, it will scale proportionately automatically for you, but you might want to zoom in so you can really see that you're scaling it and using the grid. So when we're working on positioning our ad or images into our grid, we want to make sure that they're going edge to edge and aligning in the active corner, which is the upper left-hand corner of a module. I'm going to hit return or enter on a PC, and now that is scaled to the size I want it. Are there any questions? Okay, so we'll keep going. So the next step is we're going to go ahead and bring in, we have, type and copy that we've brought in from, that we've set up in InDesign. So what you want to do is bring in the copy for your web page. Now you don't want to go into InDesign and copy the box and bring that in. We're going to actually resize and rescale, like we talked about earlier today, the copy to fit this new format. So we want just the raw copy. You can either bring in the copy from your Word document or from InDesign. I'm going to go ahead and open up InDesign. Actually, I think I have it. Oh, maybe I don't have it open. But just a second. Okay, so let's pretend this is my finished project. So I'm just going to reiterate, I'm not going to select this whole copy box and just copy the box. That's not what we're doing. You're going to take the type tool and go in to the copy and select it. And then I'm going to go ahead and select all. Although here in this case, I'm not going to select all because we're using Photoshop, which isn't a type program. It works a little differently. So for me, I'm just going to select my section. So this one, I'm going to select the intro text. I'm going to Command C for copy. I'm going to go back over to Photoshop. I'm going to use my type tool in Photoshop, which is the T. I'm going to zoom in to my layout. I'm going to start in my active corner and I'm going to click and drag to create a box, a copy box. It's going to automatically put some placeholder text in there. If I want to adjust the size of this, I can go to my move tool and it allows me to make different selections. I'm going to go back to my type tool and I can click into this box. I'm going to delete out the auto type that it's putting in, the placeholder type, and I'm going to paste Command V or Alt V, the type from my InDesign layout. I'm going to zoom in so you can see that. Okay, so here's the type. Now you can see that it is not the font, the size, anything. It's picking up the pink color I had in my grid. So this is where I can do a couple things. I can go into my libraries and I can start with choosing the color it's supposed to be. So let's say, let's say it's supposed to be yellow. So I can select my type, double click my color. Come on, colors. Hold on. Takes them a second to to load. Set color. Why isn't this? Color libraries. No, that's just those libraries. Why is it not letting me pick my color from here? What is going on? What? Set color. Why is this not working? Let's see. Let's figure out why is this not working. Go back to my libraries. Go into color window. Oh, there it goes. It's doing it. It's just taking time. I'm like, finally. Okay, it did work. It just took a minute. Okay, it's working. It just took a minute. It's like, why is it not loading? So it might take a minute because it is loading it and it is on coming from the internet. So you can see it's catching up now with all the colors I kept clicking around on. So it is bringing it in. So there, it's picked my color, and now I can choose up here in the top. You can see I can choose my type size, my face, my size. Now my size, let's say we have to zoom it up. So if my size was maybe an 8 point or a 9, 10 point, we might have to think about going into 20 or 30 point, depending. This is the larger Retina display size, so you will have to go larger if you're using this one. If you're using the non-Retina display one, it'll be closer to 15, 16 for body copy. I mean 16 to 18 point for body copy. If you're using Retina display, you're going to double that. The point is to get it proportionately, and then think of your different proportions as you're going along. So you want to always think about these active corners. You don't have to worry that this is ending here in the middle of this module. You can start your next item right below it. You don't have to wait till this next module. It's more about like lining up. So the add and this copy are all aligning on the grid. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? Let's pause here for a minute.
Do we have to have 4 columns, or can we have like more than
You can
4?
have more. You absolutely. You don't have to use what the document gave. What it just gave you something to start with. You can change it and add as many as you want. Yeah, that's a good
So
question.
on this scroll you have right now,
Yes.
like, you know how the viewpoints, so where would like the first page, where would be the first page end, I guess? Would it be like at the end of the third column here, or the third square?
So the first page would, oh, I see what you're saying, the fold, in other words, where are we going to see it tell? So what I like to do is pull it up a little bigger so it's filling my browser, and say it's probably going to be maybe not even the full third. It might even be the first 2, maybe 2.5, might be
Okay.
something like this.
So these measurements aren't exact then, they're just,
No, they're not.
okay.
These are just prototyping, just to kind of get us in the feeling, because again, this isn't a web design class. It's really just to get us to start thinking about type on screen. Okay, so this exercise is about translating our type from a print application to a screen application. So the idea is to just really start thinking about scale of our type and how it's going to be looking. So let's look at this at 100%. Hold on, 100%. Okay, and I'm going to pull in my screen a little smaller. Yes. That's my InDesign file. Hold on, back to Photoshop. Yeah, I think we're looking at probably no more than the bottom of the third, or at least halfway, maybe to the bottom of the ad for that first view before you start scrolling.
Do you want these ads to show up on every section then, or just one section?
No, just one section,
Okay.
just one. Okay. Can you guys still hear me? I'm gonna switch my earbuds.
Yeah.
Okay. Went over there. Okay. Other questions? Good questions. Other questions? So the intention to use the rest of this class period now, is to work really for the next, from now till the end of the class, on starting to build our web pages, our first kind of getting these grids set up and start bringing in some of our elements so that you'll get just about an hour of work time in class here. And then on Wednesday, we're going to review just our one design in a digital format. We're going to see where we're at with that, bringing in our interactive elements, bringing in all of our tags and all of our copy for one recipe. And then once we kind of reviewed our first digital rough, we'll then for homework for next Tuesday, we'll have our both two distinctly different directions to look at next Tuesday. To choose one to take to refine into the final design. Any questions on that? Okay, I'm going to stop here.